Hi, I'm Kyle Carlin, and this is my case study for educational finance at Fort Hays State University. The first section is all about the problem identification and analysis. Basically, what do we know about this situation? First, we know that parent volunteers are responsible for concessions and ticket sales. We know that for ticket sales, parents work in one-person teams with shared responsibilities for tickets and money. There was one ticket seller who reported 10 tickets that had been ripped and discarded, and money that was collected was consistent with the number of tickets sold or that were accounted minus the 10 that were discarded. Another parent had reported to the principal, kind of in a side conversation or just a conversation in passing, that they had paid with a $50 bill. But when the principal was counting the money at the end of the day, he noticed there was not a $50 bill in the money that was spent or that was being deposited, and the price of the missing tickets equaled $50. So kind of a coincidence that both of those added up exactly to what was missing. We also know that the parent volunteer who reported the RIP tickets had a disagreement with the principal about funding an upcoming trip for her daughter. There are clear counting procedures before deposits are conducted by the principal in front of the security guard, so a good procedure to protect the money and to have some checks in that process. Economic constraints were becoming a bigger concern for more parents and families, and when economic constraints are more of an issue, there's more of a likelihood for theft or fraud. And then the case study mentions careful accounting procedures, but specifics aren't known. We do know about the counting in front of the security guard, but it's not very clear what other procedures are in place. Some of the things that we still need to know, what are some of the other oversight procedures that took place? How should the unsold tickets been handled? From our book, we know that they should have been marked out or voided and kept with the book. That way they were all accounted for. Perhaps they have a policy that isn't clear on that, or that advises them to just throw away the tickets. I find that unlikely considering some of the other things we know. But knowing, was there a procedure that was violated, or was that just standard practice? Also, who had received the $50 bill, and did somebody trade it in for small denominations? Just because that $50 bill isn't there doesn't mean that it wasn't exchanged in an appropriate way. So what is the actual problem we're dealing with? We know that $50 worth of tickets are unaccounted for, and related to that, a $50 bill that was reported to have been used in a transaction wasn't currently in the cash deposit. As principal, I need to determine if the cash on hand is correct, or if money was stolen and covered by the missing tickets, which would be a common theme. So what my plan for figuring things out with this, first of all, I'd review all of the routine procedures for the events and ensure that they were followed. So again, what should have happened with the tickets? Were there other checks in counting of the money or counting of the tickets that took place that aren't clear in the case study? I talked to Mr. Dumas about who he gave the $50 bill to, trying to create a chain of custody for that $50 bill to account for, is it missing inappropriately, or was it taken out appropriately? Talk to the person who received the $50 bill and determine if that appropriate action had happened, and if not appropriate, determine where errors were made and provide consequences. If it was found that it was just error based on the procedure, or just a mistake, not trying to steal or anything, then there might be some consequences related to reteaching, retraining, maybe suspending them from being a part of events or ticket collection or ticket sales or money collection, those kind of things. If it was more of a theft situation, then maybe it would be contacting police or other consequence. And then also, I'd update policies to ensure that all tickets are held on to even if damaged. That's the one gap, that either the policy wasn't followed or the policy isn't appropriate and needs to be fixed. So I would implement this just by reading the policies, talking to the booster club, finding out what are the typical procedures, how are things typically done in that. As the principal in this school, it sounds like a lot of this falls to volunteers, If the principal isn't involved regularly, he may not know that there are procedures that maybe don't fit the policies. I need to make sure that we're reviewing that. Contact parents and volunteers to determine that chain of custody, kind of have conversations, calls, maybe invite people into my office to talk about that. And then when improper action is suspected, I provide those consequences as I had shared in the previous slide. Okay, so based on resolution, what's best for students? In this case, because we're dealing with activity funds, what's best for students is making sure that all the proceeds from the event are deposited and then are available for other events. By having sound policies and procedures that are consistent with the policies that protect funds, that it ensures that that those funds are available for student needs. So when other activities are taking place, that we have all the money that is due to those students that earn that money. Some of the data that's from the case, we do know that the money in the bankroll does not match the denominations that were known to have been paid. That $50 bill that's missing. 10 tickets are unaccounted for, besides a note indicating where they went or that they'd been damaged. And then a parent involved had requested money from a PTA trip for her daughter to take a trip, but the amount missing is much lower than the cost of the trip. So where it looks suspicious that she is also the one that was involved with the tickets, she was the one that had asked for some money from the PTA, her stealing $50 to cover it doesn't feel like it doesn't really fit all of what she's needing. To steal $50 when you need, I think it was around $800, $900, it just doesn't quite fit. Oops. Okay, so what I was thinking about as I was reading this, there are signs that Miss Bowman took the money, but it is hard to point to where she did wrong. I mean, based on the chain of custody of the tickets and the money and everything, right? From what we know now, she's maybe for lack of a better word, a suspect in this, but it's really a lot of circumstantial things at this point. Perhaps maybe she shouldn't be involved with ticket sales any longer if she wasn't supposed to discard those ripped tickets. But finding other ways, I don't know what we can really do about that. Feeling, I am empathetic to Miss Bowman's request for funds for her daughter's trip, but I agree the funds requested were not raised for that purpose, and so any feelings she has aren't really valid in that case. And then valuing, I'm valuing the parent volunteers to ensure that events could take place, because it sounds like without them, they wouldn't be able to have the ticket sales and the concessions and the money and all that stuff that's going on. And then I'm also valuing the accounting practices that were shared, as it shows that other details are likely to be in place, even though they weren't shared in full. So, unresolved, what really should have happened with the RIP tickets? Was it okay that they were discarded by policy? Personally, I feel like, and based off of our book and what we've learned in this class, they should have been held on to ensure that you didn't have this question of, is the money right? Is the tickets right? Was there something missing? If the tickets really were ripped, then there's no problem, but other than some gaps in the procedures, as I said. But if the tickets were discarded to cover up the taking of money, then there is a big problem with theft. But because of the chain of events, it is difficult to pinpoint who took it without further investigation. So reflecting on Standard 8, it has to do with the appropriate management, supporting social and academic learning. The ways that I, as a principal, will have effective management, and I'll ensure that there are appropriate policies. I'll make sure that expectations are clear, so that volunteers, anybody involved with money handling, is very aware of the chain of events, making sure that more than one person is involved with any one task, just so that there's not this gap that can take place where one person could be acting inappropriately without a way to check that. I'd follow through on procedures, making sure that monitor, make sure that those procedures are being followed up on or are being followed, but then also providing consequences or feedback as procedures are being carried out. And then I'd also review policies periodically to ensure that they're still relevant and if they need updating. How I would support social learning. with anything with social learning, it's all about modeling. In this case, like with the situation, it's about remaining calm and cautious, avoid rash decisions and actions. It'd be really easy in this situation to kind of impulsively assume that Miss Bowman took the money and become very angry and act as if she actually did it. But it's hard to verify that she did. And so in order to maintain a positive relationship with her, but also with all the other parents that are so valuable to this high school or middle school, then it's important for us to stay calm and work through this judiciously. I'd also encourage reflection, empathy, and understanding of the common good when working with students, as well as other adults. How do we? It's only through reflection are we really able to change how we interact with others. So, and then for academic learning, again, I'm really big on making sure that expectations are clear. I'd model and promote effective teaching practices, promote engagement through opportunities to respond, increased relevance to the information that's being presented, maybe in choice-driven activities, project-based learning type things. But ultimately, I'd also make sure that everything is data-driven. Make sure that we're doing formative assessments to determine if instruction has been effective, and providing interventions where the data is showing there are gaps, either at this whole class didn't get this concept, so we need to go back and reteach, or maybe in small groups or individually, how are we remediating this missed skill. Ultimately, that's the end of this case study for me. I do feel like this was a good practice, a good exercise that a lot of principals might find themselves in. Even elementary schools, we have, at least in my district, we have a lot of fundraiser activities and stuff where there's money in the hands of parents, a lot of money that exchanges hands. I think it's very important that we have clear procedures on how that money is accounted for and counted, and make sure that all the money that is due into those accounts is actually getting there. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.